License and registration. Elijah looked up, confused. I'm just parked here. My mom said I could wait. Officer Whitman didn't blink. Your kind always has a reason. Step out of the vehicle. Denton, Georgia, a sleepy southern town where maple trees turned red in the fall and neighbors still waved from porches. A town where everyone knew each other, and strangers usually meant trouble. And on this otherwise ordinary afternoon, a quiet revolution was about to begin. Right from the driver's seat of a worn-out silver Toyota Camry parked in the lot of Pelham Market on Main Street. Inside the car, Elijah Briggs, age 16, was waiting for his mom. On the passenger seat sat a grocery bag, chicken sandwiches, lemonade, and a bottle of vitamins she'd asked for. He tapped his fingers on the steering wheel, humming softly to the radio, sweat beading under his curls in the Georgia heat. What Elijah didn't know was that someone had been watching him for the last 10 minutes. Officer Mark Whitman, 47, stocky build, mirrored sunglasses, and a badge he wore like armor, had his eyes locked on the Camry from across the parking lot. In his mind, a black teenager sitting alone in a car didn't scream errand run, it screamed problem. He grabbed his radio. Dispatch, this is Unit 31. I've got a suspicious vehicle outside Pelham Market. Young black male? Mid-teens, white Toyota, circling. Possible 1066, I'll approach alone, requesting backup. Before dispatch could respond, Whitman had already swung his door open, one hand resting on the butt of his sidearm. His boots echoed against the asphalt as he approached. Elijah noticed the movement in the rear view just seconds before. Knock, knock, knock. License and registration now. Elijah blinked, startled. Sir, I'm not driving. My mom told me to wait here. I just picked up lunch for her. See? He pointed to the groceries. I didn't ask about your lunch. I asked for ID. I only have a learner's permit, sir. I'm not even driving. Whitman narrowed his eyes. Red flag number 1. Out of the vehicle. Now. But sir, what did I do? I said out, or I'll pull you out myself. Elijah's breath quickened. As he reached toward his pocket for his phone, Whitman grabbed his wrist. Drop the phone. Don't you call anyone. But my mom. I said drop it. Whitman yanked him from the car and shoved him against the hood, palms down. Elijah's chest was tight, his legs trembling. I was just waiting. My mom is the... I don't care who your mom is. You people always got a story. Whitman leaned into the car, rifling through the front seat. He found the groceries, the receipt, a store membership card, all bearing the name Ayanna Briggs. His hand froze for a moment. That name was burned into his memory. Ayanna Briggs. The woman he had been trying to get fired for the past 6 months. The first black police chief in Denton's history. The one who wouldn't sign off on his falsified use of force report in March. The one who had pushed for internal reforms. The one who got him reassigned and investigated. And now, this kid. This boy was her son. Whitman's fingers clenched. Logic told him to stand down. But ego wanted revenge. He muttered to himself, well, looks like today's the day the Lady of Justice learns what silence costs. The cuffs were cold, too tight. Elijah winced as the metal bit into his wrists. Officer Whitman yanked him away from the car like luggage and muttered something under his breath that sounded like entitled brat. They were in front of Pelham Market, broad daylight, yet no one intervened. A few shoppers looked on, frozen in their hesitation, their eyes darting between Whitman's badge and the trembling boy. One woman raised her phone but lowered it quickly, unsure whether to record or walk away. Whitman opened the back of his cruiser and shoved Elijah in. Sit down and keep your mouth shut. Elijah's voice cracked. Please, I haven't done anything. That's what they all say. The door slammed. Inside the cruiser, the heat was stifling. Elijah's chest rose and fell in panicked gasps. His heart was beating out of sync, fast, loud, erratic. He looked down at his scraped palms, then out through the caged window at the sky above, silently praying his mom would find him. 3 blocks away, Chief Ayanna Briggs was just leaving a city council meeting. She slid into the driver's seat of her black Dodge Charger and checked her phone. Nothing from Elijah. That was odd. He always texted when he finished errands. She tapped the tracking app she'd installed after the school incident last year, just to be sure. The blinking blue dot wasn't stationary, it was moving. She zoomed in. Elijah's location was pinging from a police cruiser heading south on Denton Avenue. Ayanna's stomach dropped. She hit dial, straight to voicemail. Again. A second call, same result. She knew that route. That was the back way to the Denton PD substation. She turned the key, floored the gas, and flipped on the unmarked police light on her dashboard. Back inside the cruiser, Whitman radioed in. Unit 31 to base. Bringing in one male, juvenile, no ID, suspicious behavior. Suspect may be in possession of stolen vehicle. The radio crackled. Confirming. Stolen? Whitman smirked. That's correct. In the back seat, Elijah shook his head in disbelief. He leaned forward, voice trembling but firm. It's not stolen. That's my mom's car. I told you. Whitman glanced at him through the rear view. You think I give a damn what you told me? Elijah's hands curled into fists, knuckles white from the pressure of restraint. She's the chief of police, he said, louder now. Ayanna Briggs. She's my mom. Look it up. Whitman's eyes flared for just a moment, but he said nothing. Instead, he flipped a switch and activated the privacy screen, sealing off the back of the car from the front with a metal partition. That was the moment Elijah knew. He wasn't being taken to the station. He was being silenced. Meanwhile, Ayanna weaved through traffic like a woman possessed. Her phone buzzed. It was Lila Torres, one of her newest recruits. Chief, you need to hear something, Lila said, whispering. I overheard Officer Whitman call in a suspect, said he was bringing in a young black male, no ID, said the car was possibly stolen. It's a Camry. Ayanna slammed the brakes. Silver Toyota Camry? Yes, ma'am. Where is he now? He was heading south toward Substation 3. But Chief, he never called for proper verification. I think he's got your son. There was silence. Then Ayanna whispered, I need you to meet me at the substation. And Lila, make sure your body cam is on. Yes, Chief. At the station, the parking lot was mostly empty, except for 2 squad cars and a dented green pickup. Whitman pulled in behind the building, avoiding the main entrance. He exited the vehicle, opened the back door, and pulled Elijah out roughly by the arm. We're going to take the side door, he said. Keep your head down. But why? This isn't how you bring someone in. There's paperwork, there's a process. Whitman turned, inches from Elijah's face. You think you know how this works because your mommy wears a badge? Let me tell you something, kid. This town's been run by real cops long before she showed up with her press conferences and quotas. He dragged Elijah into the side hallway, past an unmarked interrogation room. Elijah's voice rose. I want to call my mom. I have the right to call. You lost your rights the second you stepped into that car. No, Elijah said, locking eyes with him. I lost my rights the second you saw my skin. Whitman stopped walking. That one hit. For the first time he hesitated, and in that hesitation, the front door burst open. Chief Ayanna Briggs stormed in, boots pounding like thunder. Lila Torres flanked her, body cam on, hand near her holster. Elijah! Elijah turned. Mom! She crossed the room in seconds, placing herself between her son and Whitman. Take those cuffs off, now. Whitman stared at her, chest rising. He was. Now, or I'll take your badge off with them. His hand shook slightly as he reached for the key. The cuffs clicked open. Elijah fell into his mother's arms, breath finally breaking loose. She held him tight, whispering something only he could hear. Lila stepped forward. Chief, my cam's recording. I heard everything. He never ran Elijah's name, never verified the plates. This was personal. Ayanna stepped back, squaring off with Whitman. You had no probable cause. You lied about the car being stolen. You detained my son without charge, and you tried to hide it from dispatch. Do you realize what you've just done? Whitman didn't answer. He knew. She turned to Lila. Escort him to holding. Suspend his badge and weapon, and notify internal affairs. Lila nodded, cuffed Whitman, and led him down the hall. Whitman didn't speak, but the way he looked back at Ayanna said it all. He had underestimated her. He had underestimated all of them. And now, it was too late. The holding cell was dimly lit, quiet except for the low hum of the overhead fluorescent light. Mark Whitman sat on the bench, cuffed to a steel ring bolted to the wall. His shoulders slumped, not from guilt, but from calculation. He wasn't used to being on this side of the badge. He didn't like it. In the adjacent hallway, Chief Ayanna Briggs stood with her arms folded tight across her chest, staring through the glass with eyes that didn't blink. She wasn't looking at a disgraced officer. She was looking at a man who had tried to make her son a headline. Lila Torres approached quietly. Internal Affairs is on their way, Chief. ETA 20 minutes. Ayanna nodded, but her mind wasn't on the paperwork. It was on Elijah. Back in her office, Elijah sat with a warm blanket draped over his shoulders. A cup of hot cocoa, someone's idea of comfort, sat untouched on the desk in front of him. His hands trembled, not from fear anymore, but adrenaline. I couldn't breathe, Mom. Not when he pulled me out, not in the back of the car. It was like I was waiting for something worse. Ayanna knelt in front of him, eyes soft, voice steady. You did everything right, Elijah. You stayed calm. You remembered your training. I'm proud of you. But it didn't matter. None of it mattered to him. His voice cracked. He didn't care that I was polite, or that I told him the truth. He saw my skin, and that was all he needed. Ayanna swallowed hard. She wanted to scream, to throw things, to shake every wall in this building until it cracked. But she couldn't. Not here, not now. Instead, she reached into her drawer and handed Elijah her badge. Hold it. He looked confused, but took it. This isn't just metal and leather, she said. It's a promise, one that too many people in this uniform have broken, and now we're going to fix that. Starting today. Elijah stared at the badge like it weighed 1,000 pounds. Meanwhile, word had gotten out. By 4 p.m., local news vans lined the street outside the Denton PD. Reporters buzzed like flies, circling a story that had the markings of every national headline from the last decade. White cop, black teen, abuse of power. But this time there was a twist. The teen's mother was the chief of police. Inside the station, Ayanna stood at the podium, flanked by Lila Torres and 2 community board members. The press conference had been called with 1 hour's notice, and every seat in the room was filled. Ayanna took a breath. This afternoon, my son, Elijah Briggs, was detained without cause, without proper procedure, and without verification of identity. He was targeted based on racial bias by an officer under my command, Officer Mark Whitman. Flashes exploded as camera shutters clicked. I've authorized an immediate investigation through Internal Affairs, and Officer Whitman has been suspended without pay. But let me be clear, this is not just about one officer. The room went silent. This is about a culture, one where assumption becomes justification, one where skin color is treated like criminal intent, and one that must end. One reporter raised her hand. Chief Briggs, what would you say to those who claim you're only acting because the victim is your son? Ayanna leaned forward. I'd say they're right. Partially. Because before today this was numbers on a spreadsheet, complaints, accusations, but today it was my child, and tomorrow it could be yours. Murmurs spread across the crowd. The weight of her words settled like bricks. I'm instituting a full audit of every stop and search conducted by this department in the last 18 months. Body cams will be mandatory, no exceptions. Community review panels will have access to disciplinary records, and any officer with a pattern of biased policing will be dealt with swiftly. Someone clapped, then another, and another. By the end, the room was on its feet. Later that evening, while the station buzzed with cleanup and chatter, Ayanna stepped out into the cool air behind the building. Elijah sat on the hood of her Charger, hoodie pulled over his head, legs swinging. Hey. He looked up and smiled faintly. Hey. You okay? He nodded. Better now, it's just weird. Knowing how close that was, she joined him on the hood. Too close. I keep thinking about all the other kids who didn't have someone waiting, someone with power. Ayanna looked up at the stars. That's why we're not stopping. Elijah turned to her. You know he wasn't just doing it to me, right? He was doing it to you, trying to get at you. Ayanna's jaw clenched. I know, and he's not the only one. There was silence between them for a moment, heavy, shared, and unspoken. Then Elijah asked, What happens now? Ayanna didn't hesitate. Now we shine light into every corner of this department, and we start asking questions no one's dared to ask. She turned toward him, eyes burning not with fear, but resolve. And we don't stop, not until this badge means the same thing to everyone. By sunrise, Denton wasn't quiet anymore. The streets outside City Hall were packed with protesters, young and old, black and white, holding signs that read, I am Elijah. Protect black youth. This is why we don't trust you. Denton PD's PR office was flooded with press requests. Social media had latched onto Elijah's story like wildfire. The hashtags Justice for Elijah and Fire Whitman were trending across the country. Even national outlets like MSNBC and the New York Times sent correspondents. But inside the police station, the mood was ice cold. Ayanna stood at the center of the bullseye. Chief, you're being reckless. Deputy Chief Lowell Hartman was livid, his tie loosened, face flushed. This public witch hunt is destroying morale. Whitman was a damn good cop. You could have handled this quietly internally, like we've always done. Ayanna stared at him. That's the problem, Lowell. The way we've always done it is exactly why we're here. We've got veterans in this department, real officers, who feel like they're walking on eggshells. They should. That means they're finally aware of the weight of their badge. Lowell slammed a folder on her desk. You think dragging this into the public square makes you a hero? This town doesn't need another activist. It needs law and order. Ayanna leaned forward. And what you really mean is, it needs silence. He clenched his jaw. Careful, Ayanna. She didn't flinch. No, you be careful. Because the more you push back, the more I start wondering what else is buried under your rug. Lowell left without another word. In another wing of the building, Officer Lila Torres sat with two internal affairs investigators. She clicked her pen nervously as the lead agent played a clip from her body cam. Elijah, my mom is the chief of police. I don't care who your mom is. Metal door slams, screaming in background. The agent paused the recording. Torres, were you aware of any prior hostility between Whitman and Chief Briggs? Lila nodded slowly. There were rumors. He didn't like her policies, said she was soft on crime. But last week I overheard him say something. Something ugly. What did he say? Lila swallowed. He said, if Briggs won't step down, we'll make her look like a failed mother or a failed chief, whichever comes first. The room went dead quiet. Did you report that? I wanted to. I wasn't sure. I was scared, but now I'm not. Meanwhile, Ayanna's inbox was imploding. Emails ranged from praise and support to death threats. Anonymous voicemails warned her to go back to Atlanta, step down before she burns the town, and worse. But what she didn't expect was what came next. An old manila envelope slid under her door. No return name. Just one word in black ink. Look. Inside were two old incident reports. One from 2017, one from 2015, both involving Mark Whitman. Both closed due to lack of evidence. One detailed a false arrest of a 17-year-old black high school student named Deshaun Lively. The teen had been stopped on the way home from track practice, detained for 2 hours, and released with no charges. Whitman's report said Deshaun fit the description. The other case was worse. A Hispanic woman named Maria Delgado had filed a complaint of sexual harassment and intimidation. She claimed Whitman threatened to find something to arrest her for if she didn't show appreciation for being let off with a warning. Her complaint never went beyond internal review. Ayanna's hands trembled as she read. These weren't just patterns. They were protection. Someone had been covering for him. For years. And now they wanted her to stay quiet, too. That evening, Elijah sat on the couch at home, watching the news. In Denton, Georgia, the fallout continues after Chief Ayanna Briggs took swift action against Officer Mark Whitman, who allegedly detained her son without cause. Protests have erupted as more citizens share their experiences of racial profiling. Civil rights groups are now calling for a federal investigation into the Denton Police Department. He turned to his mom, who had just walked in. You're not just fighting for me anymore, are you? Ayanna gave a weary smile. I never was. You just made it personal. Elijah nodded. They're gonna come for you. Harder. I know. Are you scared? Ayanna looked at him, then turned to the window. Outside, protesters were still marching past their house, chanting her name. No, she said, but I'm awake. Inside City Hall, the mayor's office lights burned late into the night. Mayor Elliot Danvers, a middle-aged white politician known for keeping things calm and quiet, reviewed polling data with his aide. She's too loud, he said, too aggressive, too visible. Sir, the numbers are mixed. The Black and Latinx communities are behind her. She's got momentum. She's a PR disaster. She's cleaning house. She's making enemies. Danvers stared at the poll sheets. If this turns into a federal investigation, my name goes on the headline too, and I'm not going to be collateral damage for her crusade. His aide leaned forward. What do you want to do? Danvers's voice dropped to a whisper. Start digging. Everyone has something. The next morning, Ayanna stood before the full department for a mandatory meeting. She looked out across the sea of uniforms, some loyal, some hostile, some just scared. I know a lot of you are uncomfortable, maybe even angry, but I'm not here to make you comfortable. I'm here to make you accountable. Someone coughed loudly in the back. Accountability isn't punishment, it's protection. For the public and for your integrity. She paused, letting her words hang. If you've got nothing to hide, you've got nothing to fear. But if you think this badge gives you the right to decide who matters and who doesn't, then you are the danger we've been trying to stop. There was a beat of silence. Then Lila Torres stepped forward. Chief, permission to speak? Ayanna nodded. Lila turned to the room. When I joined this department, I didn't think someone like me would last. I'm young, Latina, from Atlanta. But last week, I watched a veteran officer throw a black teenager into a cruiser for sitting in a parked car. That teenager was her son, but he could have been mine or yours. The room shifted. Walls cracked. Ayanna spoke one last time. If anyone here thinks this isn't your fight, think again. It's already at your door. And we're not walking away. The courtroom was packed, not with lawyers or press, but with students, parents, teachers, and clergy. Locals who had once walked past injustice now came to watch it be named. The case wasn't criminal yet, but it was decisive. A disciplinary hearing for Officer Mark Whitman, open to public oversight due to Ayanna's newly implemented transparency policy. Whitman sat across from the review panel, his uniform replaced by a navy blazer and stiff posture. His face, usually unreadable, now flickered with something more familiar: fear. He had been stripped of his badge. His past infractions, once buried in red tape, were now projected on a large screen, one after the other. False stops, verbal abuse, use of force with minors, a pattern that could no longer be denied. At the back of the room, Elijah sat beside his mom. He wanted to be angry. He was angry, but he also felt something else: clarity. This wasn't just about what had been done to him. It was about all the times it had happened to others, and no one believed them. The review board chair leaned into the mic. Officer Whitman, based on the evidence presented, including body cam footage, testimony from fellow officers, and your documented history, we hereby recommend your immediate termination from law enforcement, effective permanently across all state and municipal jurisdictions. The room exhaled. A few clapped, most just nodded quietly, because justice, when real, doesn't roar, it whispers finally. Whitman didn't say a word. He rose, walked out past Elijah, and didn't look back. Later that week, Ayanna stood on a makeshift stage at the Denton Community Center. It was the town's first ever Justice and Public Trust Forum, organized by the very citizens who once avoided eye contact with officers on the street. She cleared her throat. When I first put on this badge, I thought justice was something we served. But over the years I've learned it's something we protect. Every single day. Against silence, against fear, and sometimes against our own. She stepped aside and gestured toward the podium. Elijah? There was a short pause. Then, the boy who had once sat terrified in the back of a police cruiser walked up to the mic, taller now, straighter. I used to think following the rules was enough, Elijah began, that if I was polite, respectful, and did everything right, nothing bad could happen. He looked out across the crowd. But the truth is, people like me can do everything right and still end up in handcuffs, still end up on the ground, still end up as hashtags. Murmurs of agreement echoed. I'm not here today because I want pity. I'm here because I was lucky. My mom is the chief of police. But what about the kids whose moms can't call a press conference, who don't have someone tracking their location, who just disappear into a system that never calls back? Silence fell like snowfall. Elijah leaned in. We don't need better rules. We need better people behind the badge. Applause erupted. Some stood. A few cried. And Elijah stepped down. Not just a victim, but a voice. In the weeks that followed, changes came swiftly. Ayanna's internal audit led to the dismissal of 3 more officers and disciplinary actions for 5 others. Community liaisons were appointed to every precinct. A new civilian oversight board with real power was formed. Lila Torres was promoted to sergeant and put in charge of recruitment and diversity training. Her first order of business, mandatory bias workshops taught by community members themselves. For the first time, trust began to re-enter the room when a badge did. But not everyone was cheering. Some officers quit. Some locals protested. Too much change. City Hall was tense and the mayor's office kept a quiet distance. Still, Ayanna never wavered because she understood something they didn't. You don't clean a system with silence. You clean it by flipping every light switch, one by one. 1 month later, Elijah and Ayanna sat on their front porch. The sun dipped low behind the pine trees, bathing their modest home in soft gold. "You ever think about leaving, Mom?" Elijah asked. Ayanna sipped her tea. "Every day, and every day, I remind myself why I stay." He smiled. "To fight?" She shook her head. "To build. You don't win anything by just fighting. You win when you build something better in its place." He nodded. "You did that." She looked at him. "We did." And as the wind blew through the Georgia dusk, mother and son sat quietly, knowing they hadn't just survived a storm. They'd started a movement.